All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about initiations and why they're required in the 21 divisions voodoo. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. As simple and easy to understand as possible. I'm going to try to make it as easy and as simple to understand as possible, because I get a lot of questions of why is initiation necessary? Why, if I'm a person of color, do I have to be initiated even though I'm a person of color and these are my ancestral practices? Why are white people allowed to practice voodoo or be initiated into voodoo? I get all these questions, so I'm going to answer them today. And if you have any other questions and I have the permission from my spirits to answer them, I will answer them, okay? So let's be clear on how I communicate with my mysteries. When I first started communicating with my mysteries before my initiations, when I was a little girl, I used to be able to see them and I used to be able to dream with them. They would come to me in my dreams, they would come to me and I would be able to see them. I would be able to hear them in my dreams, okay? This was before my initiations. Just because you're part of a lineage does not automatically mean that you get to work with the misterios. So there are people in my family that are not able to work with the misterios and they have to go through the person that is a caballo in the family. So in my family, it has been usually the firstborn who has become the caballo, unless the firstborn didn't want to pursue the path, and then the mystery would choose another one of the generation. So in 21 divisions, we have something that's called a spirit horse or a caballo de misterios. Okay, I am a caballo de misterios. My mother is a caballo de misterios. My grandfather was a caballo de misterios. My great grandmother, my great grandfather, my great 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 grandmother, my great great great. Okay. However, that doesn't automatically mean that everybody in everybody in the family gets all of the secrets. Think about when a king or queen is crowned. That king or queen might have siblings, but that doesn't mean, and those siblings may be part of the royal court, but that doesn't mean that everybody's gonna be privy to all of the information and all of the secrets that the king or queen is privy to. Same thing when you become a initiate. When you become an initiate, when you initiate into 21 divisions voodoo or usually any ATR, there are different levels of information that you have access to depending on your role. I have the highest role in the practice, and I have had over 90 ceremonies to get to that role. I have the highest role, and so did my mother, so did my grandfather in our lineage. However, I have siblings who also have some spiritual gifts, but they decided that they did not want to pursue that. My mother also has siblings my aunts have spiritual abilities, but they do not pursue them. Okay? So my mother was the one who held the gift of being a caballo, the highest role, and then I was the one who was given the highest role in my lineage. This is the reason why, even if you are a person of color, unless the mystery chooses you to be the head of your house, that doesn't automatically make you the head of your house, the head of your spiritual house. Additionally, just because you were born in a family that works with the misterios doesn't automatically make you an initiate. You need to understand, I need everybody to open their ears. Just because you were born into a family that practiced does not automatically make you an initiate. Because when I was a little girl, my mother was getting her initiation when I was a child. I was like, I think 5 years old, because I remember her getting her ceremonies. But I was not allowed to have any information about how to perform certain ceremonies until my grandfather in secret chose to initiate me as his successor. You understand? My siblings do not know the information of how to work with the mysteries the way that I do, because they were not chosen to have the crown in my generation. I was the one chosen to have the crown in this generation, although my grandfather initiated multiple of my siblings, but they chose not to pursue the crown. So therefore, I was the one chosen to have the crown in my generation. So what happened when voodoo came? So voodoo came with the slaves from Africa. When they hit Dominican Republic, which at the time was known as Quisqueya, they created a branch of voodoo known as 21 divisiones, 21 divisions. And then there's another branch of voodoo known as Haitian voodoo. The families that started 21 divisions had a descendant in every generation carry on the practice. I am one of those descendants. There are many descendants in my generation that do not have it anymore because some of their grandparents let it go. They converted to Christianity and they let go of the practice. The gift, however, is still in the lineage. It's still in the bloodline. But you need someone who has the gift and the misterio currently active, who has the crown currently active, in order to reactivate the crown in your lineage. So if your grandma stopped practicing, if your great-grandmother stopped practicing, the crown froze with her. Does that make sense? So even if you are a person of color, exactly, that happened to your family and now you have to restart it. Exactly. So even if you're a person of color, even if you're a person that has the gift and the misterios may visit you in your dreams, you are not fully initiated. You don't have a fully active crown. I have a fully active crown because my family did not give up the practice even through persecution. Although they embraced some aspects of Catholicism, they did not give up the practice. So my crown stayed active, which is the reason why the mysteries have me activating certain lineages again who are ready to take it seriously and pass it down to their future generations. Being upset that you're not allowed to work with the Loa is like telling somebody that you're mad that you can't go to their family barbecue. Being upset that you're not allowed to work with the Loa if you don't have an activated crown or an activated initiation is like telling somebody that you're upset that you can't work with their grandparents, that you can't pray to their grandparents. You have your own things that you can activate. Now, there are times, because reincarnation exists, reincarnation is real, where someone may appear white in this lifetime, but in a past life, they might have been of color. They might have been practitioners of voodoo. So what happens is that the mystery will always find, even if it's that one drop of blood, if it's that one lifetime that you were a voodoo saint in a past life, because I have seen that reincarnation is real. So let's stop the bullshit. Reincarnation is real, whether you like it or not. There are some white people that have been black in a past life and practiced voodoo and were mambos in a past life. So in this lifetime, the mystery finds them again and will say, you are white in this life, but you were black in a past life and you are my child. So I am here telling you, go find somebody who has an active crown and get reactivated. Another thing, you should not be doing workings with the misterios or with the Loa if you're not initiated, because it's dangerous. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. I don't care if your grandma practiced. If you are not activated, you are doing it incorrectly. Because the process is that you're supposed to go find somebody to reactivate your crown. And you're telling me, hi, Priestess May, how do you know that? Because I have an active crown, and I have gone through 90 ceremonies to have the highest level, the highest role in this practice, which is a spirit vessel, which is a spirit horse, which allows me to channel the misterio. I didn't choose this. They chose this for me. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, let me have an ego trip and decide that I want to be a mambo. I was 6 years old when my grandfather said to me, you are the one that's going to carry my crown. So I need y'all to understand out there that I'm not here on an ego trip telling you, oh, you can't work with the mysteries, because I don't want you to work with them. I would love for you to work with them if you follow the right path, if you follow the right process. You're supposed to, there's a difference between being initiated into the practice, because you can be initiated into the practice and be a servant and be a believer, which is like the basic initiation. And then there's different levels of practitioner, of magical practitioner, ceremonial practitioner. My siblings are members of the 21, but they're not practitioners because they were never trained. They never got initiated, and they never got ceremonies to be a full practitioner, to be a boko, or to be a priest, or to be a priestess, or to be a curandera, or to be a medium in the practice. Do you understand? So I honestly, y'all, I am the type of person that I am. For anybody who knows me, I do not like to sit on thrones and tell people what to do. I honestly would rather just go live off in the woods and be left alone and do my witchy thing. Because I was a witch in multiple past lives. I have been a witch. I have tapped into my witch knowledge from past lives. I'd rather be a witch in the fucking woods and not have to deal with people. But guess what? I had to be put in this role because I was the only choice. And my role is to help people find their way to the mysteries, and also for those who are not meant to be part of this practice, because I'm not just here for people who are meant to be part of this practice. I'm here to serve the collective. As a psychic, as a spiritual worker, as somebody that is here to help you get your shit together so that you can get through this life and get on with your life. Get on with your reincarnations so that your soul can elevate and so that your soul can find its purpose. That's it. And I might sound a little bit bitchy today, but it's because I'm tired of the same BS. Like, I'm so tired of this third dimensional bullshit that people have going on. There's a reason why these things are done. There's a reason why the ancestors did things a certain way. And being upset that you are being told that you have to be adopted by a lineage because you are an orphan, because if your family stopped practice, you became an orphan. You became an orphan. So if you are an orphan of the mysteries, you need to get adopted into a new lineage to get reactivated if you're meant to be part of the practice. Just like when you join Catholicism and you're supposed to get a baptism, just like there's different roles in the Catholic Church, same thing. Every single practice has different roles, okay? The Greeks had priests and priestesses and oracles and people. The Egyptians had the same thing. Every single religion throughout time, throughout history, even spiritual practices, even the indigenous people, not every single indigenous person was a shaman. Like, some of y'all are out here acting like every single indigenous person was a shaman. Like every single indigenous person had psychic abilities. No. There were warriors that were the indigenous Taino people. You had warriors, you had kings and queens, which were the caciques. You had shamans that whose jobs were to spiritually guide people. In the 21 divisions voodoo, so now that I've gone through all of these ceremonies, I am able to get possessed by the mystery, and I am able to telepathically communicate with them. I'm able to telepathically receive information from them. They are able to speak to me like another person. But when I first started, when I was a child, I could only see them in dreams. And they would give me signs here and there, which is what a beginner is getting. A lot of people get beginner signs and they think that they're like the top of the line, biggest shaman in the world. And then they go out there just with beginner information, wanting to teach and wanting out of ego, wanting to teach and wanting to initiate people and wanting to do ceremonies for people when they haven't even been properly prepared. They are literally a baby goo goo gagaing around the world, in the spiritual world, and you out of ego want to go around doing readings, doing spiritual ceremonies, doing just like putting shit together randomly when they haven't actually been prepared to work with the mysteries the right way. And what you're going to do doing that is just fuck people up. Do you know how much accountability I have to have in order to do this work? And how much care? It can't be about my ego. It has to be about the work. And some people don't want to hear it, and they get upset when I tell them, if you're going to work with the Orishas, you have to go to a Babalao, you have to go to a Santero and deal with that, the proper process. If you want to work with the Loa, you need to go to a Huagan or a Mambo and do the proper process. And there are people who think that this practice is supposed to be about recruiting more people. And it's not. It's not about recruiting more people. It's about reactivating the original bloodlines that used to be active before Christianity and Catholicism came around and caused the deactivation and the demonization of our practices. Okay? It's a sacrifice to wear the crown. It should not feel like an ego trip. Because if it feels like an ego trip, you're in it for the wrong reasons. Because it's a sacrifice. It's a responsibility to wear the crown. I have had people who have tried to steal my crown energetically, who have done work to try to steal my crown, and their life has crumbled. Because they couldn't handle the lessons that I had to go through in order to get the crown that I have. They thought that I just got this out of shits and giggles. And they don't realize that I had over 9 generations of ancestors sacrifice blood, sweat, and tears to hand down this crown, and the amount of lifetimes that I've had to go through. I saw somebody, spirit was like, that person saw you, somebody who used to follow me. They wanted to, they saw that I came out with my HP May collection, and they wanted to copy my magical candles. So they did some work, some magic to try to steal my crown, to try to be able to know what I know. And spirit told me, and they were like, watch this. That person couldn't handle it. That person literally almost committed suicide because they couldn't handle the amount of stuff that I've been through. So it's not about ego. I swear, y'all, there is nothing that I would love more than to be able to say, you know what, I don't care about people anymore. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to go into the woods and just let my wife take care of me and just frolic through the woods and talk to fairies all day. I wish there's nothing I would love more. I love my mysteries. I love my misterios. I don't want this practice to die with me, which is the reason why I do what I do. Okay? And when you work with people that pretend that they can talk to the loa, or that they can work with the loa, or with the orishas, when the orishas and the loa have very clearly stated we're only working with people who are following the process, you're gonna only fuck up your own life. Okay? I have baptisms because I have a section of my family who worked with the orishas. I have baptisms for certain orishas that walk with me for their blessing. But I constantly say this to people, I do not do certain ceremonies that the orishas do not allow me to do. I do not do readings with the orishas because that is not what they gave me permission to do. So you have to know how to police yourself. You understand? You need to know how to police yourself. Before I even started doing messages from the misterios, I had this conversation with my loa, because I do use tarot cards to distract myself when I'm channeling, when I'm speaking to them telepathically. I had to have this conversation with my mysteries. I was like, are you guys sure you want me to do like readings, messages for the collective with the cards? Because I don't want people to misunderstand that because I'm using the cards that anybody can pick up tarot cards and talk to the misterios, because that's not how it works. And they said that's fine. You can use the cards as a distraction for yourself, so that you can just hear what we're saying clearly and not be interrupted by the conscious mind and what's going on outside of us talking to you. So whenever you see me doing a message with the misterios and I'm using the cards, that's not for me. That's for you to see what they're showing me, the closest depiction of what they're showing me, because the tarot cards act as a kind of like a show and tell of what I'm seeing and what I'm being told by the misterios. But it's not the tarot cards that are talking to the misterios. It's me talking to them. It's me talking to them. It's not the tarot cards talking to them. It's me talking to them. It's just that the tarot cards are what they throw out to show, like, this is what we're saying. I do rites with the loa, yes. I don't do rites with the orisha. I do rites with the loa. And then there are certain rites that the loa allow me to do in honor of the orisha. But I don't do rites. I don't do certain rites of the orishas, because those certain rites are only for people who practice Ifa, Santeria, and Lukumi. And there is no such thing as self-initiating with the there is like a self-initiation in like Greek spirituality, Norse spirituality, a lot of the European spiritual practices. There's like a self-initiation because so many of those priests and priestesses died off. So those mysteries had to start having people self-initiate. But in 21 divisions, there is no such thing. In the voodoo, there is no such thing as dream initiation or self-initiation. That is bullshit. That is BS. Anybody who tells you that is lying. It's just trying to claim it for themselves. For an Ifa, you need to have somebody who is prepared in Ifa to prepare you for that. Okay? Based on that practice. 21 divisions, some lineages of 21 division, like my lineage, does have orishas that walk with us, but we don't do certain rites with the orisha unless the loa connects us to that orisha. Okay? And you have to be selected by the mystery. Like I said before, a lot of people are like, well, I'm a person of color, so I can practice this. I'm a person of color, so I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're a person of color. It doesn't matter if you're a Hispanic person. It doesn't matter. It matters whether the Misterio chose to work with you or not. It matters if the Misterio chose to work with you or not. You have to be initiated in the practice. The Misterio does choose white people, but they still ask you to go get initiated. You still have to go and get initiated in the practice. You can't just pick up stuff and decide that you're going to do whatever work you want with a loa. That's not how it works. At least that's not how I grew up. That's not how I grew up with it working. That's not how 9 generations plus of my family, who are one of the families that started this practice, that's not how we worked. So even Catholicism requires that you, in order for you to be a member, that you go through an initiation process, which is baptism and the sacraments. And I know this because I had to go through them on my grandmother's side, because my grandmother was Roman Catholic. And I went through all of the initiation requirements on my grandfather's side, because my grandfather practiced voodoo and a form of Dominican Santeria, which is a Dominican Orisha practice. Because he was both Yoruba and Dahomeyan. So he had both bloodlines, and I have both bloodlines within me. And he also had the bloodline of the Taino spirits. So some of my baptisms, like I said, I have over 90 baptisms, 90 ceremonies that I had to go through to be where I am. I had to do that work. Other people who grew up in this practice will tell you the same thing. I grew up like this. They choose you. You don't choose them. Anything else is disrespect. Okay? Only scammers will tell you that, oh, I can prepare you to be, when they are not even prepared. Or when they haven't even gotten to a certain level. I know that there are people out there who their grandmother is just a medium or a spiritist, and they're going around initiating people in the 21 divisions. And when I asked the loa, is this person initiated? They're like, they're initiated into their lineage, but they're not initiated into the loa. Initiating tons of people. But what they're not telling people is that they're initiating them just into their lineage. They're not initiating them into the actual loa. If you had a family that practiced and you want to continue, you need to be adopted by a new lineage and have your crown reactivated. And one secret that a lot of people don't know is that that new lineage that adopts you has the choice to, after they die, you could become their successor. But that doesn't guarantee that you're going to become their successor if they initiate you. But if you had a crown in your bloodline years ago and it was let go of, it's up to the Misterios whether they recrown your lineage or not. That was on my mother's side. My father's side had Taino bloodline and European bloodline. There are a lot of people who have gifts and practiced. They might have been servants of the Misterio, but that doesn't mean that they were crowned to be like a Mambo or a Huagan or a Boko or a caballo. So there are a lot of people who had the curandera gift or who had the psychic ability, and they were devotees of a particular misterio. But that doesn't automatically, as their descendant, doesn't automatically make you a devotee or having an active initiation. It's like a king sitting on a throne that they haven't inherited. You can't have a king sitting on a throne that they haven't inherited. It's like the royal family, right? They have how many descendants in the royal family? But not all of them can sit on the throne. Yes, so you could start as a servitor, or a servidor, which means like a believer, a member. And then Spirit can turn around and say, because of your faith and dedication, we can move you up to mambo. But that's up to them. A devotee is someone who is not a priest or a priestess, is not a bocó. They're not really supposed to do work for other people. They're more devoted to the misterio for themselves, for their own elevation. So a devotee is somebody who can receive ceremonies to become dedicated to a loa in order to have that loa work with them for themselves and for their immediate family. But they are not supposed to be doing work for like the general collective like a mambo or huagan or a caballo does. A trained caballo, because there are many untrained caballos out there who are practicing and are wild and have actually ended up hurting themselves and hurting other people because they never got properly trained. I knew a lady once, many years ago, I think it was like 10 years ago. Her mom was a wild caballo. Her mother had the gift of being a horse, and she never got trained because she could never find an elder, or she didn't want to go the proper route. She said, and when she mounted, her spirits were very, very, very wild, and she like would hurt herself. And there were times when other beings would possess her other than the misterios because she wasn't properly prepared or trained or protected. In order to know what you're supposed to be, you're supposed to get a reading with a priestess of the practice. Because priests and priestesses, huagans and mambos are the only ones, and caballos who are mambos and huagans are the only ones who can technically initiate because they are the crowned ones. And that is the high priest and the high priestess. So a mambo and a huagan is a high priest and a high priestess. The priestesses and the priests that are regular priests and priestesses are not technically supposed to initiate until they are a mambo or huagan, when they have been part of the practice for a certain amount of time, they've been practicing for a certain amount of time, and they now have the crown of being the mambo of that lineage, of being the head of that lineage, the high priest or high priestess. And then they can start initiating people because they have become the high priest and high priestess of that lineage. What about you who want to appreciate the loa and wants to invite them to help us? Is there a specific way? Yes, you can get well, if you just want to serve the loa and invite them to assist you in your life, you can either get a baptism to be a member of the practice, or you can get a baptism to be you can get baptism ceremonies to be a devotee. But understand that as a member of the practice itself, similar to my siblings, you only have the ability to serve the misterios to ask them for their guidance and their gratitude. And many times, as just a member, they are going to send you to a professional for certain things, because there are certain things that you are not allowed to do because you are not properly trained for that. No. Sacred Lotus, no. It's not. At least not in my lineage. Devotee is technically a higher level. But you're talking about two different practices. So we can't even compare them because they're two different practices. They're two completely different practices. 21 divisions. Voodoo is a different practice from Ifa. So Ifa and Voodoo were known by the ancient peoples as kind of like cousins, but they are different practices. And then the practices that stem from Ifa and Voodoo are different practices as well. Can a person read tarot even if they are not initiated? Yes, anybody can read tarot. Anybody who can read tarot, which is why I offer my tarot course. Anybody who can read tarot. You can't read tarot with the Orisha or with the Loa. The only way to talk to the Orisha and the Loa is to be initiated with the Orisha and to be crowned and initiated with that Orisha or that Loa. That doesn't mean that your Orisha who walks with you can't visit you. They can visit you. They can visit you and bring you messages for yourself from time to time. Because I've had it happen, before I got my baptisms and blessings for certain Orishas that I work with on a personal level, because I don't offer Orisha rites unless there is a particular rite that the Loa asked me to offer for a particular person. Most of the time, if I see that you have Orishas walking with you, I usually will send you to a Babalao or to a Santero, because I don't do the same rites. I do voodoo rites. I think you meant, do they all serve the same God? We all serve the same universal God, technically. But we believe that the main God of our practices are basically siblings of each other. A lot of people have gone out because they have the crown, and they have gone out and said, okay, let me get famous by sharing information that is only for initiates. And what they're actually doing is actually hurting more than it's helping, because it's making people think that don't have the proper initiations, that don't have the proper preparation, that they can practice like they have those preparations. It's kind of like saying, oh, because I know to take Advil, because I can Google that if I have inflammation, I should take Advil, then I can now become a pharmacist. Or I can now be a surgeon. That I can now be a general practitioner for other people. Do you guys get what I'm saying? Like the difference? Just because you can know to Google that for inflammation you can take Advil does not make you a doctor. It does not make you a surgeon. It does not make you a pharmacist. Those people have years of training. Same thing with a Boko, a Mambo, a Huagan. They have years of training. A devotee would be kind of like a nurse. If we're going to compare it. to the medical system. A devotee, well, a devotee would be more like a LPN or a CNN. What is that called? CSN? What is that called? A certified. Let me not even go there. A devotee is kind of like a beginner nurse. And then the more years that they have devoted to the practice, then they become a higher level nurse. So that's the reason why I'm like, okay. And for you to say that without initiation, without proper preparation, that you are doing readings on behalf of the Loa, a CNA, thank you, on behalf of the Loa or on behalf of the Orisha is very disrespectful to the people who have sacrificed hundreds of years to be properly prepared. And thousands of dollars to be properly prepared in the process that the Loa and the Orisha put forward and that the ancestors created for a reason. And it's disrespectful to the Loa because you're not really committed to learning from them. Espiritismo is basically like mediumship, except it is dedicated to working specifically with the mysteries that are, not mysteries, I'm sorry, with spirits that are elevated. So elevated spirits, the elevated dead. That's how Espiritismo was explained to me. That's how we know Espiritismo to be in my lineage. Spiritismo a lot of the times is blended in with with voodoo, but understand that voodoo is the practice with the Loa, whereas Spiritismo is the practice of speaking to elevated spirits, okay? So this could be elevated ancestors or elevated spirit guides. That doesn't mean that it's the same as the Loa. The Loa are not the same. Spiritismo would be more on the level of speaking to spirit guides of people who have reached the spirit guide level. But understand that Orisha and Loa are much higher than Spiritismo. Sansei is a Puerto Rican version of 21 divisions. So I'm not gonna speak on Sansei because I don't practice Sansei. Okay, the 21 divisions was originated in Dominican Republic, but Sansei is a branch of 21 divisions that was started in Puerto Rico. Palo and voodoo are also different. Paleria, what was explained to me about Paleria is that Paleria is really more about working with the roots. It's kind of more like root working. Whereas voodoo is, now as a voodoo sant, you can learn to be a root worker. You can learn to be, there's different versions of palo too, because you also have paleros, not to be confused with the paleros that are the musicians of the practice, because there's people who are initiated just to be the musicians of the practice. Those are called paleros, but people who practice palo, for example, most of the time that practice, the at least what it was when I was first introduced to it as a child, palo mayombe, to my knowledge, when I was introduced to it as a child, it has changed over time and it has become something else, was the ability to do root working. Very similar to being like a medicine man or woman. And they had certain spirits that were connected to being a root worker. So a root worker is somebody that can either practice herbal magic or herbal medicine. Yes, so a root worker is somebody who can practice either herbal magic that knows how to work with the spirits of the plants. I am a root worker naturally. I work with the spirits of the plants because in a past life I was a root worker, and then in this life I was also trained on how to be a root worker. So you can either work with the spirits of the plants to heal people or to do magical things with people, or to kill people, depending on what type of root worker you are. There are root workers who are poison root workers, and they just work baneful work with with plants that are known to be very powerful poisons. La Anima Sola is known as a spirit that was punished to be forever in suffering, according to what I was told, because she was one of two people. The other one I think is called the Wandering Jew. I might be wrong on this one, but I think it was the Wandering Jew and the Anima Sola. They were punished to eternal damnation because they supposedly denied Jesus on the cross, denied giving Jesus help on the cross, from the stories that I've heard. I don't work with the Anima Sola because people who work with the Anima Sola tend to... Alexa, stop. Tend to end up having a lot of suffering, especially if they don't know what they're doing. In my work with curse removal, with a generational curse removal, I come across a lot of people that have curses in their love life because their previous ancestors made pacts with the Anima Sola, or made pacts with certain beings that are not really very positive. The only work that I was taught to do with Anima Sola was work to separate lovers. Because in order to learn light work, you have to learn dark work. So all light workers in my lineage, they have to learn dark magic as well as light magic. So in order for us to learn how to undo dark magic, we also have to learn how to do dark magic as well. So you could kind of say that a light worker is like a specialty in this practice, because you do have to learn both the light and the dark, but you have to choose to only work the light. A boko is allowed to work both sides. But as a boko, you have to kind of decide what karma is worth it for you. No, dark magic is not scary for me because I know how to deal with it. It's scary for a lot of people because they give it a lot of energy, and it can be very overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna tell you, oh, I'm not scared of dark magic. I'm not scared of dark magic because I know that my mysteries will always help me get out of it. But it can be very overwhelming when it does hit you. But again, in order to do this job, I had to have a lot of protections. In addition to the psychic protection so that people can't read me without my permission, there are a lot of other protection spells that are laid over me by my ancestors and my elders. When you do dark, doesn't it? When you do dark magic, usually, yes, it usually backfires on you. If you do it towards someone who is not deserving, or who is not protected. But if that person is protected, it's gonna backfire on you. if that person is not protected or that person needs to learn a certain lesson, part of that magic might hit them, but the moment that their spirit guides let them know how to return it back to you, then you're in trouble. Yes, this is so true about Santa Muerte. I love Santa Muerte. I really Goddess King said, if you work with a Santa Muerte devotee, be prepared to have a lot of spiritual deaths and many awakenings and changes. Yes, this is very true. I don't consider Santa Muerte a negative spirit because I don't see death as a bad thing. A lot of people see death as a bad thing. I don't see death as a bad thing. I see death as a friend, because in the end, it's going to come for all of us, whether we're, in the famous words of Allison Cuthead, Hightower, death comes for queen or commoner, right? Excuse my language. I've been watching too much Game of Thrones. But anyway, death comes for queen or commoner. But the thing with death is that death is a transition. So if you're a person that doesn't like change a lot, don't work with a being of death. Like, don't work with the Barons or like the Santa Muerte or Anubis if you don't like a lot of change in your life. Because those who work with the beings of death, you have to expect change, okay? Has there been a... Usually, if something is justified, it will not backfire on you. But if that person has protection, it can backfire on you. It depends. That's why I always say, if you're going to do a return to sender, I highly recommend doing a reading beforehand and figuring out if that return to sender is going to be good for you or not. Or doing it with somebody who knows. For example, I'm offering a general return to sender with Baron Samedi. If you're justified, he's not going to let it hit you back. He's not going to let it backfire on you, because he's the one that's going to end up doing it for you. Has there been a time when I don't want my gift? Once a week. So once a week, sometimes I'm like, why did I choose this? I'm like, why did I choose this? But then I'm like, and then my misterios are like, do you not want it? We can take it back. And I was like, no. I don't mistake me. I don't want it. Give it back. I don't want it taken away. I'm just wondering why I chose this. Somebody asked, why can white people be initiated into voodoo? Yes, because voodoo is not just about this lifetime. There are people who have been voodoo sans in past lives, because reincarnation is very real. There are people who have been in voodoo sans in past lives, who have been other ethnicities in past lives. And your spirit itself, your soul, is a child of the Loa. It's not about the blood. It's not just about the blood. It's not just about your ethnicity. It's also about your soul. Is your soul a child of the Loases? If your soul is a child of the Loa, whether in this lifetime or past lives, they can choose to work with you, but you must follow the right process. You can't just say, oh, I'm a child of the Loa, so I'm going to just start doing whatever I want. No, you still have to follow the right process. No, Baron Samedi and Gede are not bad unless you are a bad person, and then you're going to meet their bad side. Is it okay to work with Lilith? It depends. It depends. If you have programming that Lilith is a evil seductress, then I don't recommend you work with her, because that is how you're going to experience her. Lilith is all about female sexual empowerment. So if you see that as a bad thing, you're going to see her as a demon. But if you don't see that as a bad thing, then you're not going to see her that way. So it really depends on who you are. El viejo del cementerio is just another name for the baron of the cemetery. El varón del cementerio. If you don't like change at all, but you have spirits of the dead, it's because you need to learn to like change. So the spirits that walk with you, they're not just walking with you to protect you. They walk with you for a specific reason. So if you have certain spirits, let's say death spirits as your spiritual development guides, it's because in this lifetime you're supposed to learn how to like those things. You're supposed to learn how to get used to those things. If I didn't have this gift, what would I be doing? There's multiple options because I have many different skills. So many of you know that I went to school. Many of you know that I have a degree in criminal justice with a minor in law and in psychology. I also have certificates in herbalism, and I also have certificates in baking and pastry. Because my grandfather was also a baker, so I have a love for baking and pastry, even though now I have an allergy to gluten, which I'm really upset about. But if I were not a priestess, I would probably be either a baker or I would still make herbal medicine, because I would just be a witch. Because witchcraft is just in my blood. My grandmother's side of my family has witchcraft in their blood, from Celtic magic and Druidic magic and Greek magic. So I just have witchcraft in my blood. What is the best way to start your spiritual journey? I would recommend a reading with your spirit guides to ask that question. So the readings that I offer are usually readings where I'm asking your spirit team what messages they have for you. So that's one of the questions that I would ask of your spirit team, like what practice am I really supposed to go down? And a psychic who reads with spirit guides, who really reads with spirit guides, would be able to tell you like where should you start your spiritual practice. But one of the best places that I would recommend starting your spiritual practice is learning some sort of divination tool. Learning how to protect yourself. Learning to honor your ancestors. Learning how to connect with your spirit guides. That's where I would start. That's the reason why I offered the webinars on how to connect with your spirit guides and ancestor veneration. And I have the very best way, in my opinion, is to start with connecting with your higher self first. When I started working with the Misterios, I didn't know a higher self existed. Our head spirit, our semi, which is what we call it in Taino spirituality, is technically our higher self, or like our head spirit is like a version of our higher selves. So my head spirit, some people would consider me a reincarnation of one of her paths, because she's my head spirit. So my head spirit in voodoo would be kind of like considered like part of my higher self. Or my higher self would be considered part of that misterio. But when I first started, I didn't know about the higher self. But everybody has a higher self. So I would highly recommend I would highly recommend meditating and connecting with your higher self first, and then finding a mentor in whatever direction you feel guided towards. Finding, maybe not a mentor, but at least finding somebody who knows how to communicate with those beings. What do you think about should be done if, let's say, you are involved in conversations with a horse when they are back in the present, not much is ever said to me, even though I ask questions? So the horse is different than the being that they're mounting. So I have situations where when I'm possessed and the misterio might say something to you, and when I come back, I don't remember what the misterio said to you. That's why a lot of horses have plazas, because the assistant is the one that's the plaza, which is the assistant, the anchor to the high priest of the mambo or the caballo, is usually the one that will be present to know what the misterio said to you. Because once I'm possessed, in the beginning, when I first started being possessed, when I first started being a caballo de misterios, when I first started being possessed, I would remember that I would, like, my soul would stand on the side and see myself, like my body moving and myself talking, but it was the misterio talking and moving my body. It wasn't me. I was watching. I was like on the side of my body watching myself. So in the beginning, when I first started possessing, when I first started getting possessed by the misterios, by the loa, it was like I was on the side and they were just talking and using my body for whatever ceremony they were doing. After a long time, after you possess for a really long time, you start to dissociate completely. Your soul goes into a trance-like state where you're almost like either asleep or where you have like amnesia, similar to like when you go to sleep and you don't remember your dreams. The whole time my body's being used for ceremony, my body's being used to talk to the person by the misterio, and I'm asleep and I don't remember. Because my actual consciousness has completely left the chat, has completely left my body, has completely left my brain. So then when I come back, whatever the misterio said to you, I don't remember. And when I first started being mounted, which is possession, it was kind of scary for me because I didn't like letting go of control. Like I said to y'all, what I thought was going to be my life, even though I started my initiation process when I was like 6 years old, I started my protection ceremonies. I got protection ceremonies when I was pretty young. But my actual initiation process started when I was 8 by my grandfather and his head spirit. I went through my teenage years, and like every summer I would go and spend time with my grandfather and refresh the process, because we call it refreshing. Yes, your head spirit usually it can be a loa. Your head spirit can be a different spirit too, but it can be a loa. Some head spirits are ancestors, meaning that you basically are like their reincarnation. So if you are somebody who gets possessed, some people are you are your ancestor literally reincarnated and you don't know it. So sometimes when you have like memories of things that you never experienced doing, like you never remember doing in this life, sometimes it's because it's something that you did as one of your ancestors. As when you were alive in another life at another time, you were doing that thing, and then you're reincarnated again, and you might be, I know somebody who is their grandma who reincarnated, and it's their grandmother. So like chronologically, she's her grandmother, but she's the granddaughter right now because she didn't get to finish. So she didn't get to finish her work as a light worker, so she's reincarnated again. So anyway, back to the why don't caballos remember what the loas say when they're possessed? It's because of that. After a while, after you when you first start getting mounted, you remember some things, and then after a while you remember less and less and less because that part of your brain gets turned off and you're kind of gone. And it's the misterio talking through you. And then sometimes when I'm even channeling is slightly different because channeling is just being used as a microphone. So it's like my head spirit is talking into my crown like a microphone, and my mouth is the speaker. So that's channeling. Channeling is when the misterio is speaking to you through your head, and they are speaking through your head, and they are they're not fully possessed, but they're just using your mouth as a microphone and as a speaker. Possession, spirit horsing, is different because they use your entire body. They move you out of the way and they use your entire body. My grandfather used to tell me he would go to Mars because he liked hanging out at Mars. And I didn't believe him until I started mounting, and I was like, wait a minute. You ask for guidance and questions are ignored. It depends on the person. Sometimes there is guidance that the caballo can't give you because it's not the caballo's place to give you that guidance. It has to come from the misterio. And also, the caballos are not your slaves. Like, we are not here to just answer your questions whenever and wherever you want it. There's a certain process. You have to book a reading. You have to pay for our time. So you can't just expect that because a misterio talk to you through a caballo that they're going to be accessible to you all the time. That's not how it works. We have to live too. We have to have, a proper process. So some caballos, like if somebody asks me a question, if you want to know that, I don't know that. If you want to know something about your life, I can't tell you that in a regular conversation. I'd have to call the misterios and do either a channeled reading or allow the misterios to possess me to speak to you. So you would have to get a reading with that person, whoever. You have to talk to that person and find out why they're not giving you guidance. It might be because they need you to book a proper session. It was always interesting. I would get drinking and smoking and fiestas, and when she would come back, she was never drunk and didn't smell like tobacco. Oh, your mom. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, when you are a real caballo, usually the misterios will absorb the alcohol and the tobacco, so you don't really get affected by it. Because it's the mystery doing it, not you. It's similar to life regression, but not exactly. Life regression is a much more light version of trance. Like the level of trance, let's say, the level of trance that you go into when you mount is like 100, compared to like a past life regression, it's like a 10, and a regular trance session is like a 3 or 4. So for some of the misterios, I hear their voice, and some of them, I speak to them telepathically. But again, to be clear, I had to have many ceremonies. It was not until my 21st or 22nd ceremony that I was actually able to start clearly hearing and telepathically speaking with my mysteries. And with each ceremony that I got after that, I have over 90 now. I was able to hear them more and more clearly. Is it possible to have a Loa walk with you and want to work with you even though you're not meant to be initiated? Pretty much everybody is meant to be initiated. People who say that you're not supposed to be initiated are lying. Everybody who is going to work in this practice, I said this in the beginning, so if you came in late, everybody who is working with any Loa is supposed to be initiated. Whether they are serving them as just a believer, unless you are just a client, if you are actually working with the Loa yourself, you are supposed to be initiated. Like I said in the beginning, my siblings are initiated into the practice of the 21 divisions, but they are not initiated to be like bocos or priestesses or any of that, because they are not wearing the crown. I'm the one wearing the crown in this generation. So yes, usually, as far as I know, because this is how I grew up, for you to even know anything at all or be given any information at all, you're supposed to have some sort of initiation, either as a member, which is the very basic initiation, a member of the practice, or all the way up to caballo. So what other people are doing out there for money, not my business. But a lot of people out there are scamming people for money. And because they don't want to have to spend the money to do things the right way. And that can end up backfiring on you. So a Loa can walk with you and they can guide you, they can protect you, and like from time to time give you certain guidance if you're not initiated. But most of the time the Loa get involved either through an initiate, through a priest or priestess, through a devotee, in order to do certain work. Does that make sense? Yeah, even if the person is family, sometimes there are times when I don't answer my family's question, a family member's question, because it's not my place to answer it. They have to talk to the misterio. There were times when I would be like, Papi, which is my grandfather. I used to call him Papi because to me he was my father, because he basically raised me. Papi, this and this and this and this. And he would be like, I don't know, mija. You have to ask the misterio. You have to ask the misterio when they come. Because I can't answer that question for you. You have to ask the misterio. Yes, when you get certain number of ceremonies, you start to learn, you start to hear their voice, and you start to know what they sound like. All of the misterios have different voices in my head. If Esilitanto wants to work with you, you most likely will need to be initiated for that. No, you don't. You don't wear a crown unless you've been crowned. So stop saying that, because it pisses me off, because you haven't actually done the work or the sacrifice to be crowned. So if you haven't been crowned, you don't wear a crown. It's that simple. You haven't been crowned. So when you are crowned, then you will be wearing a crown. I hate to break it to y'all out there with the ego trips, because some of y'all have some serious ego trips. The moment that you're told that you have a gift, or the moment that you're told that you're supposed to become a priest or priestess, all of a sudden you think you already are. If you actually, you can be a gifted person, but if you haven't developed it, you could have the gift to play baseball, but that doesn't make you a baseball professional because you haven't been developed to become a baseball professional. Same thing in the practice. You can be gifted, psychically gifted, but that doesn't automatically make you crowned. The ceremonies make you crowned. The being will crown you through ceremonies. And even people who are gifted, you're supposed to do the work to develop your gift. It's not just like, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, you're just, just figure it, just let it go. It'll come when it's supposed to come. You're supposed to hone that gift. I had to do a lot of work to hone my psychic ability. It didn't just show up. Like it showed up, obviously, since I was a child. I've been able to see the dead. I've been able to talk to the dead. I've been able to see psychic visions, but I wasn't crowned yet. I had to do the work to get to where I am. Everything that I have, I've worked for it. And to say that you are crowned is disrespectful to people who have had to do so much work and sacrifice. Just like somebody saying that they can channel Oshun when they haven't done the work to actually be a channel of Oshun is disrespectful to not just the people who have sacrificed to be crowned, but also to Oshun herself, because Oshun has a process you have to follow. If you have it, that means it's part of your soul contract to do it. And avoiding it, it's just going to make it worse for you. It's not really going to help you to avoid it. It's really just going to make it worse. It's going to make your life more difficult to actually avoid it than it is to just do it. Because every gift that we're given, every path that we're given is part of our soul contract. And if we try to avoid it, or you're just setting yourself up for another reincarnation, because whatever you don't finish, I wish that I could make a movie of like everything that I know and everything that I've seen. Because it's hard to explain things sometimes, because there are certain things that can't be explained, they can only be shown. But when you don't pursue a gift or an ability that was given to you, you can't run away from it. It's gonna make your life more difficult, and then if you don't finish it in this lifetime, we'll just have to finish it in the next. No, I just, like, one day I would like to maybe hook myself up to one of those machines that is able to like make a movie of your dreams. They have a machine that is like in testing right now, where they can hook you up to it and it can make like a visual of your dreams, of the dreams you had. I just wish that I could do the same thing, but with all the information that the mysteries have shared with me. If you are gifted and you're having trouble accepting your gift, I highly recommend doing a past life regression to find out, because a past life regression, I call it past life regression, but that's not the only thing that you do during a past life regression. A past life regression, babe, can I bother you for some water, please? A past life regression, we also go into not just your past lives, but also why you have certain soul contracts with certain people. Why you have certain gifts that you have to have. Like, why is your destiny a certain way? Like, even your name is destined. Do you know that before you're born, you whisper your name to your mother so that you can fulfill the destiny of that name? And then when you change your name, you change your destiny. So For example, I don't use my full name because it's a very big name. It's a very heavy name. I don't use my full name for as my priestess name. My priestess name is a nickname. It's a shortening of my name. It's a shortening of my destiny. Because my destiny is so big that I wasn't really ready to carry my full name. But very soon I'm probably going to start using my full name. Misterios told me it's time for me to take up my entire destiny. So when you shorten your name, you're like only fulfilling a certain portion of your destiny. So like when you use a nickname, like May is my spiritual name. It's my priestess name. It's not my full name. If your parents change your name, they change your destiny. But usually their higher self tells them to change your name. So like your name determines your destiny. Numerology is very real, by the way. There's different versions of numerology, but they all pretty much have the same thing in common. Like the date of your birth determines your life path. The day of your birth determines a lot of the karma. And your name determines your destiny. Look up what your name means. What the Latin root of your name is, or whatever the root. It may be a Hebrew root or a Latin root of what your name means. It'll tell you a lot about yourself. And if there is no Latin root, or if there is no Hebrew root of it, or indigenous root to it, look up what the numerology of your name is. So sometimes people are not named what they're supposed to be named. My name was supposed to be Light. But my mother chose a different name. My name was supposed to mean light. It was supposed to be light. It was supposed to mean light. But my mother changed my name. But it's funny because still my name still has kind of it kind of has light in it. And then May is the brightest month of the year. Well, the brightest month of the beginning of the year. You're welcome. Don't get me wrong, I do it for me too. I do it for me because it helps me elevate faster. But like when I tell, a lot of new priests and priestesses is know that this is a sacrifice because you are sacrificing having a human life, like a regular human life. I mean, you don't have to sacrifice having a regular human life when you're a priest and priestess. You don't have to. You can still have children. You can still have a spouse and all those things. But there are some people that choose not to, because it's a lot easier to not have children to be responsible for when you are carrying this responsibility. So you don't, in my practice, you don't have to choose to not have children. I chose to not have children after a lot of fertility issues. I chose, I'm not going to have children, and I'm just going to focus on this. So but that's why I get upset when I see people saying that they're working with the Loa, or that they're channeling the Loa or whatever, who haven't been through any ceremonies, because I know for a fact that the Loa tell me all the time, we don't talk to people and we don't allow people to do work for people that aren't properly prepared, is because of that. Because there are people who sacrifice a lot to do this. And for somebody to come off the street and because they're on an ego trip and say, oh, well, I'm channeling so-and-so who hasn't been through the proper ceremonies, or I'm doing work with a being that consistently states through like many different caballos. And I was one of those people that in the beginning was like, I don't get why we have to be initiated to do this. I don't understand. And the longer I did this, the more I understood why. The more ceremonies I got, the more refreshments I got, the more I understood why. Because it's like different levels of clearance. Huh? The more I expanded my consciousness, the more I realized why it was only respectful and it was only right to do it the proper way. And why it was also safer. Because you do have a lot of trickster spirits that try to pretend to be certain beings. And can you imagine if you are giving somebody advice and you're actually receiving that information from a trickster? And that person is like, that whole person's life could be all messed up. We need to accept that what differs from one person to another. Because there is a proper way of doing something and there's an improper way of doing something. It doesn't differ from one person to another. It really doesn't. Like I said to you, when I first started, I could I could dream with the Loa, I could dream with the Orishas that walked with me, but I had to get ceremonies to expand that connection. And pretty much every single time that I've talked to a Loa, whether in my head or in other people's heads, they have said the same thing. Ceremonies are necessary for this process. So anybody who just wants to say that they can do something when they actually haven't been prepared to do something are most likely dealing with trickster spirits. Or if you want to communicate, if you want to try to communicate with these beings on your own without properly being prepared, by all means, go ahead and do so. If what you do with your life is your business, but when you involve other people and you involve the process of charging other people, and when you involve the process of guiding other people, that's irresponsible. It's like saying, oh, I can do a surgery for you, even though you have never been trained on how to be a surgeon. So no, we're not going to agree to disagree on this one. If you haven't been trained on how to properly do these ceremonies for somebody by the mysteries and by your elders, you have no business doing those ceremonies for anyone. What you do with your life is your business. But the moment that you involve somebody else, you have to have some accountability. Because you can't just say, oh, I'm going to do a surgery for you. Because if you think that, you actually don't take this seriously enough, or you don't actually know what you're talking about. Because if you know how deep these practices go, you would know that it's dangerous to do certain ceremonies without being properly trained. Or to try to imitate certain ceremonies. Because I'm seeing a lot of people trying to imitate ceremonies when they don't even know what they're doing. That's like taking a scalpel and cutting somebody and thinking that you know how to do a C-section. Or thinking that you know how to do brain surgery. Or thinking that you know how to do whatever surgery without proper training. Spiritual surgeries work the same way. And sometimes can be more dangerous because they can actually cause physical harm. I get it, y'all. I'm a rebel too. I was a rebel. I've been a rebel my whole life. But I also am responsible enough to say, get properly prepared. If you want to be offering workings for people with the Loa, if you want to be offering ceremonies for people with the misterios that you work with, or with the orishas that you work with, get properly prepared. If you want to offer guidance from the Loa or from the orisha, get properly prepared so that you don't mess up somebody else's life. That's all I'm saying to you. It's disrespectful and it's irresponsible. But I'm saying that, and you're still, because you're so egotistical, you're still going to do whatever you want to do and go out there and do whatever you want to do, but you're only messing yourself up, nobody else. So that's all I'm going to say. You're messing yourself up, because however you mess up that person's life, it's going to come back on you. Because you didn't do the proper due diligence of you making sure that you got properly prepared. So, because you don't realize that people really, really have a lot of faith in the mysteries and in the orishas, and because they are real, and they will do a lot of people will do anything for the orishas and the mysteries that the mysteries and the orishas ask for, which is a big responsibility to carry. And if you really cared about those people that you say that you're guiding, you would care to get properly prepared. If it wasn't just about your ego, you would care to get properly prepared. But anybody who wants to argue and say, oh, I can talk to, when you don't even know the practice, that's irresponsible. Even to work with the archangels, I had to get initiated and get proper ceremonies to work with the archangels. So you need to understand that it's not just about gatekeeping. It's about responsibility. You can usually do tarot readings without getting initiated. You can learn how to do tarot. So tarot is not practice specific. I'm talking about when you're talking about you're working with a deity, or you're working with a misterio or an orisha or a loa. when you're saying, or an archangel, when you say that you are working with those beings, you need to be properly prepared to actually work with those beings. Because you are guiding people who take these beings very seriously because they have seen how serious these beings are. And yes, if you don't learn how to properly read tarot and you mess up people's lives because you give them the wrong information, that can also have consequences on you. So you think that you're cheating everybody else, but you're actually cheating yourself by not doing things the right way. Tarot has a certain meaning. You can read tarot intuitively, but I always recommend that you learn the actual meaning of the tarot cards, which is what I teach in my course. I teach the actual meaning of the tarot cards as they were taught to me by an elder. And then from there, you may have some intuitive interpretations of the tarot. But let's be honest here. If you don't want to learn how to do something properly because you don't either want to pay for it or you don't want to have to listen to somebody else, you're not just cheating others, you're cheating yourself too. It's not just about gatekeeping. There's a reason why the Misterios said, if you're going to do work for other people, you must be initiated and you must have these ceremonies. There's a reason why the Orisha said, if you're going to be guiding people, you have to have these initiations and you have to have these ceremonies. It's because it's accountability. Do you frown upon people that hold off initiation due to not being able to afford it? I'm not going to frown upon somebody who holds off their initiations. I will frown upon you doing work for other people without being initiated. No. You pray before you do tarot. Is it okay to ask for whose guidance? It depends on who you're asking for guidance when you read. So, there are some beings like the archangels and your guardian angel, your higher self, your spirit guides. You can ask them for guidance, but not the Loa usually. Usually the Loa, you have to be devoted to them, or you have to be initiated to be a priest or priestess of theirs for them to guide you in your tarot readings. So usually when I do the Who Walks With Me readings, I will tell you what Loas walk with you, but that doesn't mean that you automatically get to set up an altar. It's usually that information is so that you know whom is helping you in different areas of your life. And then it's usually recommended for you to get some sort of ceremony with them for them to communicate with you more clearly. I'm not sure, aside from money, why some people are so offended with the idea that this is a close practice and that you have to be initiated and trained to work with these beings, when the whole reason why initiation and training is there is to protect you and protect the people who you are serving from you doing things incorrectly and messing up their lives or messing up your own life. It's like you have the right to represent yourself in court, but if you're not a lawyer, you're going to probably mess up your life. If Papa Candela walks with you, what areas of your life does he help with? It depends on what area of your life he is assigned to. So some people have Papa Candelo as their money guide. Some people have Papa Candelo as their health guide. Some people have Papa Candelo as their spiritual development guide. It depends on what area of your life you have him assigned to. Like, not your higher self assigned him to be responsible for. So I always tell people, like, if you don't want to get initiated, be a witch. But you're not going to be working with a loa. Because they require a much deeper level of devotion. If you just want to do magic, just be a witch. You don't have to be, but you're not going to be working with the loa or the orisha, because they require a certain level of devotion. That if you don't want to give that level of devotion, then you don't have the right to work with them. It's kind of like sleeping with somebody who isn't your spouse. Like if somebody is like, I'm not sleeping with you unless you get married to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't force that person to sleep with you if their condition for sleeping with you is that you have to be married to them. Or monogamous. There are some loa that are like, I only want you working with me. And then there are some loa that say you can work with all the loa that present themselves to you as long as you get initiated and you do this process. What do you recommend for someone who wants to learn, who wants to be a witch? Learn what magic is and what magic isn't. You can usually start as an elemental witch. My magic course, exactly. My VIP magical course, which will be reopening soon. In there I go into the basics of being a witch. The things that I learned that I was allowed to share by spirit. Enrollment for my magical VIP course will be opening up soon. So, like, if you want to be a witch, work with the elemental spirits, with, fire, water, air, earth. Witches usually work with nature. Connect with nature. Meditate with nature. The whole loa marriage thing, I don't really go deep into it because in my lineage, we don't do loa marriages. That's more of a Haitian voodoo thing. At least in my experience, it's more of a Haitian voodoo thing. I don't know if other 21 divisions lineages are doing it. In my experience, it's very common in Haiti, but not in Dominican Republic. So it depends on the mystery. I know Esli Danto is famous for, from my knowledge of her, is famous for asking that in Haitian voodoo, but she doesn't really ask that for that in 21 divisions. So, that depends on it depends on the lineage. Haitian voodoo does a lot of things that we don't do in 21 divisions. Probably because 21 divisions is more influenced by Catholicism a little bit more. And Taino spirituality.
Mm-hmm. That's what they just said. It was more considered Catholic.
Yeah. 21 divisions has a lot more Taino and Catholic influence than the Haitian practitioners, than the Haitian lineages that I've had experience with. It's many branches. We all come from the same tree, but there's many different branches of voodoo. And there are some practices that some lineages continue, and then there's some practices that some lineages don't continue. It's up to whatever the Loa asks of you. It's up to what the Loa asks. There's different levels of devotion that can be asked. Now, for like I was talking about early this morning, some deities usually will ask to have sexual relations with some of their devotees. So, but that's an honor. So some of the male deities in other practices, not necessarily in the 21 divisions, but in other practices, will ask in exchange for whatever it is that you're asking for. They will ask for like sexual relations with you, and that's usually an honor. But let me be clear, it's not usually the priest or priestess that is going to have sexual relations with you, because there are some priests out there that take advantage of that. It's the being itself will come and have sexual relations with you in your dreams. But it's not sleeping with the priest or priestess. Let me be clear. She saw a male and a large white horse that will lay down with her next to her in bed. Yeah. There are different it's not the priest or priestess that will sleep with you. It's the being itself. I know there are some priests out there that take advantage of that, and they tell people that it's that they're supposed to sleep with them. No, it's with the being, the actual being, not the priest or priestess. Okay. But it depends on what being you're working with. Also, you have to remember too, a lot of us that come from the Caribbean who practice Caribbean voodoo, we also, because we had the Spaniards that colonized the area, a lot of us also have deities in the Celtic, because the Spaniards, before they were Catholics, they actually worked with the Celtic deities. Well, if you're sleeping with a Loa, you would know ahead of time. If you're sleeping with a being, you would know ahead of time. You wouldn't just have a dream about sleeping with them. They wouldn't sleep with you without your permission. They would ask you. They would usually ask you beforehand. Give me 1 second, my phone's about to die. So if somebody just approaches you randomly in your dreams, ask like wanting to have sex with you, that's probably an incubus or a succubus. That's usually a sex demon. Because the beings that would ask to sleep with you, first of all, you have to ask for something first from them, and they would agree. They would make that agreement with you beforehand. Yeah, you can decline a marriage with a Loa, at least from the experience that I have with that. Yes, you can decline a marriage. Yeah, there are goddesses that will flirt with you. Yes, usually the sex demons will mask as someone you want in order to suck on your energy. Funny story. That's actually the reason why people started putting nets around their house, around their beds. Because the sex demon actually looks like a mosquito.
Oh, God.
Like a giant mosquito. So a lot of indigenous cultures would put or like remember back in the day, for those who are Dominican and who have Dominican grandmas, there used to be like nets that were put around the bed. Obviously, they're like mosquito nets, right? But there was a dual purpose for that, not just to keep away mosquitoes. Like mosquitoes are usually seen as succubus spirits, succubus demons. So the moquiteros, yeah. The mosquito nets, those were not just to keep away mosquitoes. They were also to keep away succubus spirits. Especially around children. Because it's believed that succubus spirits, especially if they're like pedophilic, will go after children. So like the mosquito is actually seen as a messenger of the succubus in some cultures. So it's not just to keep away the actual mosquitoes. Do you ever wonder why why mosquitoes are usually attracted to certain people over other people? One of my elders used to say that mosquitoes were attracted to sweet blood, and they say that people who have sweet blood are people who are specially gifted.
Must got a lot of sweet blood. Mosquito killing me.
Grace is saying that she used to get tangled in the mosquito net. Let me tell you, I grew up in DR until I was about 9 years old. I love Dominican Republic, but I love the accommodations here better. The mosquitoes get you all the time because you're especially gifted. They say when you have a high, like a lot of spiritual energy, mosquitoes are more attracted to you because your blood is sweeter. Mosquitoes eat me up when I go out. But funny, they don't come near me as much when I have certain protections around me. The accommodations, there is no central AC in DR. Have you been in Dominican Republic with no AC in the middle of summer? My family had, my grandparents built a house that was pretty much considered like high middle class. And we still only had one AC in that house. With that sun at 100. Listen, when my grandpa and my grandma got married, they were very, very, very poor. And my grandfather worked really hard and like worked super hard. Both he opened a bakery and he also worked as a caballo de misterios, as what I do now. And his whole life. And they were able to build a house and buy property and stuff in Dominican Republic, right? And build a house that was pretty much like, in my neighborhood, my house was considered like higher middle class, okay? Higher middle class, high class in my neighborhood. Because the other houses in my neighborhood were made of cement block and tin roofs. My house was the only house in the neighborhood that had like really nice, like we had the gates and the, you know, it was obviously made of cement but like nicer materials because my grandparents built some good money from the bakery. So my grandfather had bakeries and did also this practice as well. But let me tell you, no matter what house you live in Dominican Republic, no matter how nice your house is, you do not want to catch yourself in the middle of summer in DR without an air conditioning unit. I'm going to tell you that much. Because your soul will sweat. Not just your body, your soul, okay? Your soul will sweat. I'm from San Francisco de Macorís, so I come from a village that was not really very advanced and still isn't as advanced. I'm from San Francisco de Macorís. And let me tell you, you don't want to find yourself in the middle of July in DR without an air conditioning unit. Chantal, your family and mine probably. If you're a Sanchez, I used to live. You're a Sanchez. Are you from Avenida Sanchez or no? Or it's just your last name Sanchez? Does anyone else pray after you kill a roach? Germán Collado, okay. Well, roaches are actually associated with the demon of pestilence. So the demon of pestilence is a funny guy. I can't stand him. He actually looks like a roach. When I've seen him around people, he actually looks like a roach. And what he does is that he will... Sometimes when you're doing a working, like a hex breaker, he will send a roach to eat the energy, because the demon of pestilence loves to eat negative energy. Or if somebody has sent you witchcraft, one of the ways that you know is because you get a lot of visits from the demon of pestilence, which is why anywhere there's a lot of roaches, the demon of pestilence is living in that area, somewhere. Son de los restaurantes entre el Bonao y Sánchez, entrada de la ciudad. Oh, nice. Oh, la restauración. I thought you meant restaurante. I was about to say, I was like, trying to think. Your family is from El Bonao. Oh, Esperanza. In the house. Del campo. Tú eres campesina. He spends a lot of time in New York City. When I tell you New York City is like the most energetically dirty place in the world, I'm not joking. That's why I tell y'all, if you live in New York City, you need to be cleansing your house. You need to be cleansing your house. That's why in Hindu culture, they believe that the roaches can be their negative ancestors, so they don't. I used to have a Hindu neighbor, and he didn't like killing roaches because he told me that, and this is nothing against Hindus, okay? I'm just explaining what I was told. This Hindu neighbor, he told me, we don't kill roaches because we believe that they could be our negative ancestors, and they're just, they're paying their karma. Yeah, Campo is nice in DR. I used to spend more time in Moca because my stepfather's family is from Moca. All the demons spend a lot of time in New York City. If it's not in LA, they're in New York City. Demons love major cities because it's easier to tempt people in them. It's easier to tempt people living in major cities because people are under a lot more stress, so it's easier to tempt them. Some people believe that rats are are one of the demons as well. I can't remember right now what demon is associated with rats. But yeah, usually, most of the time, demons love being in cities because they can tempt more people in those cities, usually. Oh my God, yes. I'm not even going to say their name. Josefina or Josephine. I'm not even going to say that. I rebuke it in the name of God. Oh my God, no. Yes, they are a form of vampire. Did you guys hear that they finally admitted that vampires are real? They're real. I told y'all that they were. Sam and I accidentally ran into a vampire club in Salem. Like a real vampire club. That because they had like a mirage spell to keep out people who didn't have magical abilities. And we didn't realize that we were just like following energy in Salem, and we accidentally walked like right in front of it in Salem, Massachusetts. Bye. Yeah, vampires are very real. They just keep a very low profile. All these beings are real. They don't just come from people's imagination. Imagination is just a veil. It's just what they call the veil between the spiritual and the physical world. The magic of vampires is just that they have the ability to manipulate people. I like the old one better, but it's pretty good. The new one's pretty good. Goddess King. Anyway, that's it. That's all that I wanted to say today. Listen, there's people that are gonna be mad. Be mad. I don't know what to tell you. I'm seriously not just trying to gatekeep. I'm not just trying to gatekeep. I don't care what you do with your life. It's your life. You do whatever you want to do. But I am trying to explain to you that it is irresponsible to yourself and to others if you are trying to do ceremonies with the loa or the orisha, or giving advice with the loa and the orisha without you being prepared on how to properly communicate with them and how to properly do these ceremonies, or being prepared to work with them. All right? Have a blessed day. I have other work to do, so I gotta go. Many blessings.